I don't exactly remember how old I was when Up first came out in theaters, but I do remember that I went to see it like 3 times in the span of a week. I first saw it with my mom, and then I had to get everybody I cared about to go see it with me so I could see them experience it for the first time. I had completely fallen in love with it. I don't even know what it was exactly that was so appealing to me. Something to do with how cutesy it was, but also so emotionally heavy that it made it equally entertaining as emotionally fulfilling. It was one of the few movies I received as a disc for like a birthday or something, and it's been viewed on occasion every so often since. But at some point I put it down and haven't seen it since. That is until this last week when, during my daily routine of binging way too many BBC nature docs on Netflix, I came across that stupid, there's too many people online, even though there's only 2 people logged on. Anyway, I was forced into making the hard decision of doing nothing, or pulling an old movie out from the dusty DVD stash to watch instead. I found Up in there and decided to return to what was once something I loved very dearly. What I found was that a lot of my previous opinions about the movie were reinforced, while some others I now feel quite differently on. While I definitely still hold Up to be one of Pixar's best and one of the best movies I've grown to love, it's undeniable that the parts of this movie that everybody remembers or even cares about are the parts with Carl and Ellie in the very beginning. Nobody really seems to talk about the rest of this movie, which is odd considering how bombastic the rest of this movie is. That's something that really popped out to me this last time. There's so much craziness going on. First, Old Man uses a bazillion amount of balloons to turn his house into an airship and fly to South America. Then he and some kid walk the house across some mountainous terrain, just to find some enormous terrestrial bird being chased by talking dogs, one of which they happen to befriend. Then the dog's owner, who happens to own a big blimp, chases them around until a big final battle happens on that airship a million miles up in the air, with doggies flying around in airplanes, shooting darts at them by biting chew toys anchored into their steering wheels. There's so many ridiculous ideas just coming one after another that it all feels like a stream of consciousness with no barrier holding back what can happen. And it does this so naturally. There's no questioning any of it. I mean, characters do point it out and do have those funny what the moments, but the movie never really stops to question its own logic. In that way, as pretentious as it might sound, it's similar to a Miyazaki film where you can never really guess what's gonna happen in the next scene. I only say pretentious because that's the comparison everyone uses as their go-to in showing how big brain they are. But what I said is still true. So, like, that side of this movie is very cute and endearing, but then there's, like, the other side that everybody remembers. The very sad first few scenes before the crazy stuff goes down. It's remarkably down-to-earth and relatable as a result, which only makes the rest of the movie more out there. This has made some, like the nostalgia critic, argue that this movie is very polarized as a result, which is a valid criticism, as the real-life bits, or the point of the story, occurs at the very beginning and end, but only sparsely during the middle portion, which, as a result, made me, who's seen this thing a million times, just kinda sit there waiting for the movie to get to the place it wants to be at. I don't know. In a way, it does sort of feel like the whole ridiculous adventure portion is just kind of a distraction from what the movie really wants to be about. I don't know. Listen, that may sound way too harsh, and to be honest, it probably is. But I needed to say it because that feeling is there in me. Plus, if it is a real problem this movie has, it's not that big a deal. I was still thoroughly entertained and emotionally impacted, even though this was like my 50th time seeing it. Visually, it's beautiful, of course. It's Pixar. But it was kind of strange to me that Up has really aged in areas. Specifically, the character animation just looked a little too stilted or puppet-like when comparing it to modern-day 3D stuff. Color-wise, it's extremely bold in a lot of places, but also really reserved and toned down where it needs to be. The soundtrack is beautiful and memorable, as you'd expect. I don't know if I'm the first to mention this, but why do so many of the tracks feel eerily similar to Star Wars? Is that just me? Like the whole introduction of the big dog pack and the chase sequences and the battle scenes? The themes are so Star Wars sounding. I only push the possibility of a Star Wars inspiration in the music because there are moments in this movie where they do seem to be parroting Star Wars. Just a weird connection or influence. I like it though, if it's there. So I guess to finish this thing off, Up is dualistic. Superficially, it's very cute and endearing, with many fantastical elements making it as fun as possible. But deeper within its narrative, it's extremely in touch with reality and down to earth, dealing with really deep themes like being adventurous kids, falling in love, aging, death, loneliness, insecurity, and divorce. I think that's what keeps this otherwise just silly story so grounded and relatable. And it might have been that which was so appealing to me as a kid.